Hey Adam, how you
Hey,
doing?
all right, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. So I've recently joined ThreatSpike in the sales team, which is good. I've enjoyed working for the business. Definitely got some decent products to offer and some good experience in the space. Interested to hear from you, the chief exec, on why you formed the business and also your background prior to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, glad to hear you're enjoying the new position. So prior to FretSpike, so I started FretSpike actually back in 2011. Prior to that, I was actually working at Deloitte, one of the big four, helping companies to secure their environments. So these were big, large international banks, large retailers, helping them to identify different types of security threats within their environment.
Hmm.
And a lot of that focused primarily around the SIEM slash kind of SIM space. These companies would have already deployed SIM solutions. They'd be collecting logs from various different sources of data, so intrusion detection and antivirus and proxies and things like this. And they would be putting all this information together into a SIM platform. And essentially, they weren't really getting out of it the kind of value that they hoped to get. So they weren't seeing the kind of insider threat detection, malware detections that they were hoping to get. And so I would come in, and as part of my work, I would help them to structure the project. So I look at it from a perspective of what are we trying to detect. So, for example, malware, hacking, misuse, misconfiguration, things like that. Look at what kind of behaviors you would expect to see if those threats materialized. Map that to data sources within their environment. Design the correlation rules, and then effectively train their SOC on the incident escalation, triage, and investigation procedures. So a lot of my work focused around that. And I have to say that added a lot of value for those companies. So they went from kind of having not a lot of structure to suddenly having the structure and the plan to start getting value out of these kind of solutions. My surprise, I have to say, during the process was just how complicated it was. So for these companies that had already spent a lot of money on these different solutions, they themselves were expected to kind of wire up and integrate these different solutions together. They
Hmm.
were required to write these rules, maintain them, to do all the integrations, have a SOC in house who would then look at the output and do it. It just seemed like an incredible amount of work, and frequently, like those types of solutions, because of the complexity, it would just kind of often break, and so you would have to kind of keep looking at it, keep refining it, keep improving it, kind of thing. And so with ThreatSpike, the objective was to try and make that simpler. So could we essentially provide that kind of outcome, but completely out of the box? So you would deploy the solution into your environment. We would collect the data that we need to do the threat detection. We would run it through pre-existing rules and correlations, and then we would then push alerts into our own internal security operations team, who could then do the triage on behalf of the customer. So this would mean that we would then be able to just kind of simply onboard new customers, and they would actually be able to pick up and get the exact same type of experience as any other previous customer had had.
Brilliant. And then you've got the ThreatSpike Blue service now. Tell us a little bit about that and how it compares to some of the other well-known MDR services out there.
Yeah, so with Fresh Blue, it goes way beyond actually the typical MDR which you think of. So when you look at the MDR, and it's focused mainly around EDR. So looking at host-based activity, looking at what processes are doing, are they injecting to other processes, are they adding persistence mechanisms to the machine? They're focused very much on that kind of area. With FreshBite Blue, what we wanted to do is come at it from a different perspective. We wanted to provide every security control that a company would need in order to secure itself. So it doesn't matter if you're looking to detect security threats on the network. It doesn't matter if you're looking to stop data leakage, stop a hacker from breaking into your website, or you're looking to lock down a lost or stolen device. Threats by Blue essentially is based on a platform which can offer you all of that functionality. And then we wrap the whole thing with a managed service where the objective is that we're providing that 24/7, 365 set of eyes on the alerts that are coming out of the platform. But also, we're actually able to keep expanding on that. So, as our customers' requirements change, we can adapt to the changing technology landscape, to those changing requirements, and continuously offer them a solution, whatever their problem is.
Yeah, I noticed that it was built completely from scratch using C++ and then a scripting language you invented. Does that make it easier to add new functionality to it over time?
Yeah, exactly. So the really key thing is that we can actually update it. Okay, so we are both the managed service provider, but also we own the technology platform, and this means that we can the very next day, let's say, after a customer points out a problem that they have, we can actually design a solution for them and get that deployed out onto our own platform. So this means that it's very agile. We're very responsive to new customer needs, new requirements. But critically, we found it really important that when we roll this technology out across hundreds of thousands of endpoints, what we're looking to do is to maintain as much stability as possible. So what we want to do is that we're just working and tweaking our algorithms, and the more stable that platform is, the more confident we can be that when we have a new feature, we can very quickly just roll that out across our customer base, thus keeping that kind of agile feel to it, rather than having to go through 6 months of regression testing because we're using lots of open source libraries, for example.
Hmm. Understood. Must have taken a lot of work to get to this point, but now you're here, it's quite easy to add and subtract
Exactly.
things from the platform.
Exactly. So it was built up over many, many years, and it's taken quite a lot of time to get to this point. But interestingly, now that we're at this point, it is quite interesting because you find that companies, once they've built the web platform, they've built an endpoint agent, they've built all these different capabilities, they kind of just solve one use case. Now, what we're doing is we've actually got all those kind of different components in place. We can add on new use cases really quickly. So, one good example is that about 4 months ago, we started working on an email gateway capability. So, what we wanted to be able to do is screen emails that are coming in for malicious content, things like phishing, malware, and fraud and things like that.
Hmm.
And if we were starting from scratch, then we would actually be needing to obviously build that web portal, build that platform on which we can receive emails, store them, analyze them in a in a high availability way. But essentially, because we actually have all of that stuff in place, we were actually able to get that solution out to market within, I think it took about 2.5 months before we actually had the very first release out there, which to me was mind blowing. And it's
Hmm.
interesting to see that we're now actually out there competing in that space just 4 months after even the inception of the idea.
And what new ideas do you think will come in terms of ThreatSpike Blue for the future?
Well, that's a very good question. So, in terms of like the types of things that we're going to be working on, one part is new functionality. So, we want to cover more platforms. We want to offer more capabilities in the security space. But one really big important area for us is actually making everything simpler. So, what we wanted to do is we want to make ThreatSpike Blue as consumable as possible. Now, if you are a smaller sized organization, or you're an organization who doesn't have a lot of time, then, which is pretty much every organization, I think you would argue, then you need these solutions to just work. You need them to be very responsive, kind of get straight to the point. And so this is where we're seeing a big AI play coming up within the platform, where actually it would be able to fundamentally simplify the problems that our customers are looking to achieve. So if they have, for example, a new reporting requirement, to be able to dynamically build reports in the platform based on their every whim that they want to do. If they want to change the way that the platform works, if they want to introduce new rules into it, so what employees can do and what they can't do on devices, then this would actually open the doors to dynamic rule building based on just a customer expressing their requirement in plain English. So I think it's really exciting. It's obviously a space which needs to be taken very carefully
Hmm.
because of the sensitivity and the criticality of everything we're doing. But that is a really big part of our roadmap over the next 6 to 12 months.
So that's ThreatSpike Blue, the MDR platform, but you've also delved into the offensive security space with ThreatSpike Red. Tell us a little bit about that platform and the reason behind going into that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So ThreatSpike Red is something. So we've for the last couple of years we've actually been doing red team testing with our existing customers, and so we've been essentially stress testing them to see how well they would withstand a cybersecurity breach. So let's say, for example, they get targeted, then and that target is including everything from looking at their external facing IP addresses, their services, trying to hack their remote access, phishing and social engineering, calling people up, physical access to sites. There's a lot of different ways that companies can be breached. And so what we've been doing is working both sides of that. So we've been doing the monitoring side, but we've also been doing that kind of stress testing to see, okay, would they withstand a targeted attack on their company? And so, beginning of this year, we decided to make this into kind of a more general offering, actually, to the market, something which goes beyond our existing customers, something we can offer to new customers who are just finding out about us for the first time. And so we decided to actually to create the first managed security service for offensive testing. And what this does is it provides you with 260 days of a time in the year where you can actually choose what types of tests you want to perform. So that could be things like web application testing, it could be infrastructure testing, vulnerability scanning. You can choose as and when you want to do those tests. You can schedule them back to back, you can do read tests, but that kind of freedom and flexibility is built into the offering. But the customer is paying a fixed price. And it's really competitively priced in the industry so that people can actually come on board very simply, try this new offering, and get a taste of what it's actually like working with the ThreatSpike team. And then what we see is then from there, quite a few people will actually then move on to our MDR service because it's identifying different kind of vulnerabilities in their environment, which maybe they weren't aware of before. But it's really nice that we can actually offer a full, complete picture on their vulnerabilities as well as the actual threats that they're facing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, certainly commercially, it's been refreshing to deal with customers and just offer a fixed price subscription for both pen testing, vulnerability scanning, and red team exercises. I've done this for the last 10 years, and scoping individual projects, working with scheduling prior to actually getting the work confirmed can be frustrating for customers. So it's been refreshing with that in mind, and also good to work for a company that's agile enough to respond to customers quickly in exactly what they are looking for.
Definitely. I mean, I think from our perspective, because often we're consuming penetration testing services ourselves, obviously for compliance to demonstrate to our customers that we're looking after their data and we're securing it in the way that they would expect to. So we ourselves are a customer of other companies, and we just find it an incredibly frustrating experience. So we'll be on hour-long scoping calls talking about how many IP addresses, how many VLANs that we have, but ultimately what it often turns out is that people are just trying to repackage a Nessus scan as a penetration test, and that leaves us kind of disappointed with the results. And so it's really nice to actually kind of offer something which is genuinely really innovative, but actually the depth of testing is phenomenal. And being able to offer red team tests to small organizations or even large organizations typically is completely outside of their budget because it goes on for 4 to 6 or even 8 weeks. That type of testing is just not affordable usually. So being able to offer that through the ThreatSpike Red service is a total game changer. And to be honest, I wish that we could be a customer of our own service, but unfortunately, that is just not workable at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts, Adam. Thanks for jumping out of the comfort zone and doing the video content as well.
My pleasure.
Um, More to come in the future.
Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers.